Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the garage. Gerald here with you. It's been a while since I did a custom tier list. I just started doing those a few months ago, and I have another one for you today. I'm going to be tier listing, is that what you say? Ranking? I don't know. Neon Studios films that I have seen. I went through the Wikipedia page, I went on to Letterboxd, and I think I have seen 45 Neon films out of the roughly 65 that they have distributed. And it's a lot of movies, so I'm going to go pretty quickly. And I've got some tiers to tell you about as to where these films are going to end up. So let's bring it in here. All right, here we go. So I got all the movie posters there for the tier list we're going to be doing today. You know, the success of Anora last year and really the consistent streak that Neon Studios is on when it comes to the Academy Awards specifically is really impressive. And it usually starts around the Cannes Film Festival. A lot of times they end up winning the Palm or they're in competition and get rave reviews. And then they go on to be present in award season. You know, I'm thinking of Anatomy of a Fall, Parasite, of course, back in 2018, Anora this past year, Triangle of Sadness, so on and so on. So let's rate or rank. I don't really know what to say with tier lists. I don't know. So I've got Perfection. So if you're up there on that top tier, which there will be a few in here, and I'll talk a little bit as I go on. I'm just going to kind of talk like you guys are hanging out with me here in the garage, which I understand would be creepy, but we're just talking movies. So Perfection is essentially anything that I would give like a 9 or a 10 to. Pretty damn good is anything that's going to fall in that 7 to 8 range, and it's probably what a lot of the films on this list will be because Neon doesn't do a lot of duds, as you'll see, or at least in my opinion. Shrug is like 5 or a 6. It's like, it's okay, but if I never see it again, I'll be completely fine. No thanks. It's not like it's the worst fucking movie in the world, but at the same time, I wouldn't recommend it with a straight face, and I probably didn't like it and will never revisit it again. And then Big Mistake is anything that would be like a 4 or less, like out of 10, I mean. So like anything where I'm like, it's a big mistake that Neon Studios even signed on to do the movie, as it was a little bit of a dull spot or a dark spot in their filmography because they have a lot of really good gems in here, but then they have a handful of mistakes, in my opinion. Let's get into it. So over at tiermaker.com, these were sorted randomly. Look, I love Cronenberg. I was also disappointed with his film that came out last month called The Shrouds. I think he's just on the other side of his career, and he's doing a lot of these like personal films that have these like built-in narratives that are important to him, and that's cool. But I miss my old Cronenberg. I miss my weird horror body vulgarity, you know? And then we got some of that in Crimes of the Future, but it was just a weird, I didn't really get it. And I mean, aside from some cool visuals, no thanks. Vox Lux, speaking of no thanks, I don't think it was a big mistake, but I was not a huge fan of Brady Corbet's directorial debut there, although I love Natalie Portman in the movie and a lot of the performances, the aesthetics. But man, what a slow burn, just the pacing was like excruciating. So I didn't hate it, but I definitely am not rushing to see it again. Got our first documentary here, Three Identical Strangers. People love this thing, and I know it got a lot of notoriety that year on the award circuit. It was an interesting premise that I'd heard about prior to seeing it, and it was one of those movies that just kind of let me down at the end of the day, even though I thought it was a cool premise, but it would be like a 10-minute segment on like 60 minutes would have been like, oh my God, this is so enthralling. But as a movie, it just kind of lost me after its initial kind of plot was kind of explained to us and we kind of learned what was going on. It was just kind of like really drawn out at that point. Here we go, our first, and I'm going to use the word, I didn't put it on the tier, but for Portrait of a Lady on Fire, I'm going to say masterpiece. This is a 10 out of 10, easily one of the best films that Neon's been attached to. Man, so good, and I've talked about this movie on my channel before, but it's one of my favorite movies of the modern era since like the year 2000. It would be in my like top 10 movies of the last 25 years. The next one would be a horror movie called The Lodge. I remember going to a screener of this when it came out a few years ago. Stars Riley Keough, who I love, and it had a lot of like cool tense moments, but there was supposed to be this really crazy plot twist, and it has like this claustrophobic home invasion type setting out in the blizzard. They're in the middle of this cabin in the blizzard. It just kind of wore on me after a while. It wasn't horrible, but I mean, I'm literally doing that when I watch it. On the other hand, Wild Rose, starring Miss Jessie Buckley, is pretty damn good, all right? You're looking at a 7 or an 8 out of 10 easy on that one. She plays a country musician who's kind of like up and coming and sings her own songs in the awards mix that year for Wild Rose. I think she's going to be back in the awards discussion this year for Hamnet. I love her. This was also the role where I was introduced to her as an actress. I know she had done things before that, but she was never really on my radar. It's a pretty damn good film, guys. Another documentary. Neon doesn't really hit with the documentaries for me. Fire of Love, which was nominated for an Oscar that year for Best Documentary, is okay. You know, it follows the story of this couple that basically goes around taking pictures of active volcanoes, and their love story from having done that for 30 years and how it keeps them together and fresh and vibrant and exciting, and I didn't care. How about Michael Mann's Ferrari? Where do you guys think I'm going to put it? A very divisive film. Where I'm going to put it? It was pretty damn good. I don't give a F. Fuck it. There we go. Next. Revenge. The Coralie Farjad debut is absolute perfection. I actually like this movie a little bit better than The Substance. This one would probably be like a 9 out of 10. The Substance, I think, was maybe an 8 for me. So they're very close, and they're both extremely brilliant. But Revenge is like the first movie I saw at my local Alamo Drafthouse in the theater there when it opened. And it's just a memory that I was just like, man, this is whoever this fucking filmmaker is, let's go. And then the next thing she did a few years later was The Substance. So it turns out, as usual, I was on point. Little Monsters is like a COVID era film that Lupita Nyong'o starred in, and she was a music teacher for like an elementary school, and on a field trip with her kids there's a zombie outbreak, and she essentially becomes the hero killing zombies, protecting these 11 and 12-year-olds. That sounds awesome, right? It just wasn't executed terrifically. I mean, it was good, it was okay. That's why I'm putting it on the ed tier. It's probably like a 5 or a 6. So if you have Hulu and you haven't seen it and you like Lupita, I would say check it out, but otherwise you don't really need to rush to see this one. Another documentary, I don't know, maybe we'll go through this and I'll find a couple that I like, because I didn't really study this group here other than just making sure I'd seen them. But Biggest Little Farm was a documentary that came out a couple of years ago. I think this was also like towards the end of the COVID era. And it's an important documentary, I guess, for like keeping farms alive and dairy and, you know, these little independent farms where they're not mass produced by machines and all that kind of stuff. So it's very like interesting and important, and I understand that, and I'm not saying it's not. I just, as a movie, again, I feel like it would have been a cool like 30-minute segment on like a news show or Netflix, even if they were doing like mini documentaries or stories within a larger movie or whatever. I don't know. But as a movie on its own, it just ran out of gas for me. All right, next up's the movie Loose. This was a well-intentioned movie that I did enjoy. It would just miss being on the pretty damn good tier, though. It's going to be in the 6 out of 10 range for me, 6 to 7. It was good. I mean, you know, it's kind of played like a thriller, but it also has social commentary built into it. Tim Roth was awesome in it as the father. Octavia Spencer was brilliant as the kid's teacher in the movie. It didn't really know what it wanted to be. I mean, I did like it, but I just wasn't blown away by it. One that I did not like that I'm going to put on the big mistake tier, actually, is probably be like a 3 or a 4 out of 10 for me, is a movie called Big Time Adolescence. It starred Pete Davidson. This is very similar to Little Monsters, one that went straight to Hulu. So it is on Hulu if you're a big Pete Davidson fan. But essentially, he befriends one of his buddies, if I'm remembering correctly, his little brother. They like play video games together, and he just like, you know, lets him cuss around him and a lot of stuff. And some of us as kids may have had somebody like that in our lives that we looked up to that was essentially a bad influence at the end of the day. But it just didn't work for me. It was just Pete Davidson kind of being himself and like doing it for his biggest fan. In this case, was like a 12 or 13-year-old boy. One I'm going to put on the pretty damn good tier from last year, actually, is The Seed of the Sacred Fig. Just an impactful, we were talking about important, right? Really important film, was in the Oscar discussion last year. It's not an easy watch, but it will teach you something, and it is important, especially from like an international film viewing perspective. So Seed of the Sacred Fig is probably around an 8 out of 10 for me. Really, really good. The Beach Bum is an interesting one because it's another one that I really, really like, but Harmony Korine, the filmmaker who also did Spring Breakers, is known for just being literally the definition of divisive in terms of filmmaking, like down the middle. Nobody's like, he's all right. People are like, I hate that guy. I don't want to see any of those movies. Or they're like, oh my God, I love that guy. He's so courageous. He's so awesome. And I kind of fall on that side, honestly. There's been some of his stuff that hasn't hit with me as well. But when it comes to The Beach Bum and Matthew McConaughey playing like this kind of surfer version of himself from Dazed and Confused, like that same kind of character, adding in the surfer Jimmy Buffett kind of like aesthetic, was just awesome. It was hilarious. Zac Efron is an absolute comic gem in The Beach Bum. He is so goddamn funny in that movie. And this is actually the movie where I said to myself, Zac Efron can do some acting. He can do some stuff here. He doesn't have to just be the hunk on the college campus or whatever. He can do other shit. One that I saw during COVID at a film festival, we had to wear masks and be outside at a drive-in theater because it was like right when COVID started. Everybody just thought everybody around them was going to die. It's called Ammonite, and it stars Kate Winslet and Saoirse Ronan as two women. It's a period piece, I think, in the early 1800s. And basically, Kate Winslet's on vacation in this small, I think Irish maybe, or Scottish town. And she's by herself, and she's just there searching for like these rare minerals because she collects them and like gems and jewels and stuff. And Saoirse Ronan is a bit of an expert on that who lives in the village. And to make a long story short, they end up kind of sparking a romantic relationship, a lesbian relationship, affair, if you will. And it's coming on the heels of just a couple years before of movies like Portrait of a Lady on Fire. So I could see what Ammonite was trying to do, and Kate Winslet and Saoirse Ronan just really committed to the performances, and you got to see them make out, which was kind of cool. Not to be creepy, but there's one like really intense scene that's a long one take of Kate and Saoirse basically having sex, and it's like intense, and the camera doesn't cut. And their commitment to that, I was really impressed by for multiple reasons. Next up is a horror film that also is streaming on Hulu right now. So Hulu is obviously in bed with Neon here for a lot of these that I didn't even realize when I was making this list. I'm going to put it on the no thanks tier, though. It's not the worst thing in the world, but it's a movie called It Lives Inside, and it's a premise about, you know, a demonic entity or some kind of weird supernatural force that is being harnessed within something else. Think about that hand from Talk to Me, or like whatever, where the spirit is kind of a conduit through this inanimate object, and it's this like mason jar, and it lives inside. And it's a cool premise, but we've just seen it 1,000 times. So instead of XYZ, it just happens to be a jar in this one. But some good elements, but at the end of the day, I don't care if I ever see this thing again, so no thanks. How about Eileen, another lesbian story here, and it stars Anne Hathaway and Thomasin McKenzie as the couple that kind of sparks a lesbian affair in the movie. McKenzie works at a prison as like a prison secretary or something like that, and Natalie Portman is this new, obviously beautiful, well-to-do lady that shows up in town, and there's some kind of like sinister plot beats going on with Anne Hathaway's character. So the lesbian relationship that we're kind of following for 2/3 of the movie, we find out it kind of turns into just something that's not even remotely related to what we've been following. And while that might work for some people, that kind of quick jolt of a plot twist, if you will, it didn't work for me. I was actually digging the story of our two main characters. So I'm going to say no thanks. A lot of people really like this movie, and it was actually in the awards discussion a couple years ago. It didn't end up getting any major notoriety, but it was in the discussion early on because of everybody involved in it. And I really wanted it to succeed, but I was one of those people that just did not like that huge swerve that the film took. One that's kind of middle of the road for me is Cuckoo, although I will tell you, even though I give that film about a 6 or 7 out of 10, I will tell you that Hunter Schafer blew me away in this fucking movie, as did Dan Stevens, actually, as kind of like this weird over-the-top comedic like hotel owner. But Hunter Schafer is, and I've said this on my channel a few times already when she's come up on other projects, I think is going to be one of the big young actors in Hollywood in the next like 5 to 10 years. I really do. Obviously, we've seen what she can do on shows like Euphoria, and she's popping up with Anne Hathaway actually this year in Mother Mary. I'm very, very excited. It's one of my most anticipated of the year, and I really loved her in Cuckoo, and she made this film watchable because it was another one that the pacing was just off for me, because it's a horror thriller that has some really thrilling moments, but they're just so sparse, and you have to deal with all this like other kind of slow stuff in between. I'll tell you what's not middle of the road, and that's Bong Joon-ho's Memories of Murder. Pretty damn good. It's going to sit right around an 8 out of 10 for me. It's not my favorite Bong, as you'll find out here in a minute, but he did something with the police procedural here that made it his own. He put kind of his artistic stamp on that kind of tired narrative that we've seen a million times, and I really loved what he did in this movie. And it's just so aesthetically pleasing as well. Bong Joon-ho is one of the best doing it, and I love Memories of Murder. Infinity Pool has got so many people I love in it. We talked about David Cronenberg earlier, and this is from his son, Brandon Cronenberg. It's not as good as his first film that we'll be talking about in a little bit. I'm going to put it on the tier because I do like it. I just wanted so much more from it. And I also remember thinking, this is way too fucking long. Like, they should have shaved 20 to 30 minutes off of it easily. It drags in spots when it could have been really, really performatively electric, where you just couldn't catch your breath, but they do let you catch your breath and kind of reflect on different crazy shit that has happened in the movie. And that's why it just kind of fell off for me a little bit. I do still recommend it, but it's definitely not one of my favorite in this Neon catalog, or for that matter in Cronenberg's catalog. Brandon, I did really like the monkey from Oz Perkins this year. I'm going to put that on pretty damn good. I'll tag it on this video if you guys want to listen to me and my buddy do a podcast review. We talked about this one for a full hour. I actually like this one better than the one I'm about to rank. So if you like horror comedies, like just the idea of a horror comedy, over the top slapsticky horror comedy, that's what The Monkey is. It wasn't marketed as such, but I feel like it kept that funny tone just enough throughout the movie where it was so unbelievable, but still kind of had a little bit of scariness to it. And Oz Perkins, I thought, did a great balance with that. His other movie happens to be next year, Longlegs, and I didn't like that one as much. And that's going to surprise people, because I think the better movie, like the more well-made or higher quality film, is probably Longlegs, especially when you're looking at things like editing and cinematography and the production design and Nicolas Cage's performance. Micah Monroe was lights out in Longlegs. And of course, the marketing was phenomenal for that film too. But for me, The Monkey just worked better because it was more entertaining. There was always some funny shit happening in The Monkey, some entertaining stuff happening. In Longlegs, it's a Silence of the Lambs meets Seven procedural that does move slowly when you're trying to solve the crime or solve the mystery, until we get to the final act, which was my favorite part of Longlegs, which is super fucking bonkers. But it was also a swerve, kind of like what I was talking about with some of these other films, like Eileen, for example. But that swerve I kind of saw coming, because I knew something had to happen here. We weren't just going to be following Micah Monroe, visiting crime scenes for 2 hours. I knew there was going to be some crazy shit going down, which ultimately did end up happening. And I did like the plot twist in Longlegs. It didn't blow me away as much as the marketing for the film blew me away. So I think some of it is also expectations not being met, honestly. But it is a good movie. Another one that I'm going to put on the end here is another kind of like thriller called Handling the Undead that came out last year. This one I believe is also on Hulu, I think. So you can stream it. It's a slow burn, guys. But sometimes I appreciate originality in a movie that normally is a traditional cliche trope, especially in the horror genre. And Handling the Undead also stars Renate Rosva, by the way, who I fucking love her so much, from Worst Person in the World and the upcoming Sentimental Value. She's in this movie as the star, the mother in the film. And here's the premise real quick. Basically, in this Norwegian town, these corpses on one night of the year, we don't know why, just this one individual night, rise from their graves. And they're zombies, essentially, the undead. And we don't know why. There's some kind of electromagnetic field or something that did something to folks that died within a period of time recently. So she loses her son. He's like 8 years old, like a couple days ago. A couple days later, this event happens, and he raises from the dead and comes back to them. And the grief and the dilemma that you see Renate Rosva deal with in this film, where she has her son back in her arms in her home, but she also knows, this is not my son, he's dead, almost like a Pet Cemetery kind of vibe. What would you do? Would you rebury him? Would you keep it? You know what I mean? Like, it's a very interesting moral dilemma, and a question that as a parent you really you wrestle with. Anatomy of a Fall, one of our Oscar nominees for Best Picture, is pretty damn good. You guys know that. It's around a 7 or 8 out of 10 for me. I didn't like it as much as I think the masses did when they saw it at Cannes, and it just had such a huge word of mouth. It is a great film, obviously, and I love Justin Triet. I love a lot of the performances in the film, and I love this kind of throwback to the courtroom drama and the husband-wife murder mystery. The wife or the husband's always the prime suspect, usually, until their name is cleared. So this movie, it takes the whole movie to maybe clear the wife's name, maybe not clear the wife's name. It is left up to interpretation on what we think happened. And I actually don't mind that at all. I know some people critique that as like, you didn't tell me what's going on. Like, well, why didn't you wrap this up for me? I don't need that. Leave it open to your imagination, to your interpretation, especially when you incorporate the son into the story, who I thought was a phenomenal performance by him too. So Anatomy of a Fall, one of the better films that Neon's put out, and it's going to fall in the pretty damn good tier for me. One that I just saw recently, I'm going to put on the no thanks tier, which is a bummer for me. It's called Hell of a Summer. Finn Wolfhard and his buddy wrote and directed this, and it's a bit of an homage to like the 80s camp slashers, like the Friday the 13th films, which you would think I would really like that. It also kind of twisted in this social media kind of TikTok era narrative to the film. It has that aesthetic of the 80s and 90s, but it's taking place in modern day with social media, which would sound cool, but it was a little jarring to me, frankly. Like I would have rather it have picked one or the other. You know, we're getting there. Another one that I don't know if big mistake is the best way to kind of categorize this one, but I just know that I didn't like it. It's called She Dies Tomorrow. And even though it had great performances and a great visual style, the story made my head hurt. It was such a Groundhog Day kind of story, but with nothing happening. I mean, it was like 2 hours. I remember I watched it. Maybe it was because I watched it at home, but I was just like, man, when is this fucking thing going to end? It was just such a drawn out narrative that just did not work for me. I didn't understand the point of it, and I didn't understand who we were supposed to sympathize with in the movie. I don't even remember it. That's how like unimpressed I was by it. I'm going to put it on the big mistake tier, She Dies Tomorrow. And then the other side of the coin is probably my favorite movie on this entire list, and that's Parasite from 2018, the Oscar-winning Parasite for Best Director, Best Picture, the SAG Ensemble Award that year, a lot of stuff. Bong Joon-ho, I talked about him earlier, and I've talked about this movie on my channel at nauseum, but this is one of my favorite movies of the last 25 years. I've been thinking about doing that list, by the way. Let me know in the comments if you guys want that. I'll do my top 25 of the last 25. I'm thinking about doing that. But spoiler alert, Parasite would be way high on that list. I love it. I love the kind of built-in topical message in the movie about class and wealth inequality, and I like the also built-in narrative a little bit around social media and our dependency on that. And then you have just brilliant performances. You have this magic trick of a twist in the middle of the movie that turns it into something else. It has some really tense scenes. It has some really funny scenes. Easily one of my favorite movies of the last 20 years, so is on the perfection tier. Enos Men, is that how you say it? Enos Men? Enos Men? Good God in heaven, I hated this movie. What the fuck, man? I don't like it when movies are like essentially like art projects or like, you know, student films or whatever, but they're being released by giant studios and going into theaters and out to millions of people on streaming. Don't do that shit, Neon. Why did you put your name on this? I had to watch it. And halfway through it, I'm going, what the fuck? Reading it, you go, okay, this is gonna be great. But then you watch it and it's literally this woman on an island. And it's a good performance by her, but it's just her walking around the island, making herself dinner, planting flower. I mean, it's just her. We're just following her doing normal shit throughout the whole movie with the exception of one scene towards the end of the film. No, not for me. In Shirley, we get Elizabeth Moss playing Shirley Jackson, the famous author. And although her performance was very devoted, very committed, and I really liked her performance, the movie didn't hit for me. I feel like as a biopic and as an historical story or retelling of an important author in American history, we could have done a lot more with it. It just kind of focused on her sexuality, and it didn't really focus on any of her major works, really. I mean, they mentioned it in passing, but it just kind of misrepresented the historical facts that I would want to learn about Shirley Jackson in a movie like that. And you had somebody like Elizabeth Moss in the film, you just didn't take advantage of it. So for me, it's going to go on the no thanks tier. I did think last year's Babes was fucking hilarious. I was dying watching this movie. It is so funny. The two main characters are gut busting. I mean, her one friend becomes pregnant, but the father, or she isn't quite sure who the father is because she's promiscuous. Her other friend is married in the film and is kind of jealous of her being able to sleep around. So that dynamic is absolutely hilarious. But they're there for each other. They're best friends, but they're essentially each other's other, significant other, basically, side piece, if you will. And they just take care of each other, and hilarity ensues at different scenarios. There's one scene in the restaurant when they go out to brunch, and she thinks her water's breaking, but she doesn't want to leave because the waffles are so good and stuff at this restaurant. I couldn't breathe when I was watching it. It was so funny. Triangle of Sadness got a lot of Oscar notoriety and was actually nominated for Best Picture. It just didn't work for me. I get it. Ruben Östlund is one of those filmmakers that has worked for me in the past, but more often than not, it's just not for me. It's just not my cup of tea. The way he kind of drills narratives into your head and beats you over the head with a sledgehammer with it. You know, unlike a movie like Parasite that subtly dealt with wealth inequality and, you know, being rich versus the meager. In this movie, it's like not subtle at all. It's literally played to comedic effect, and it's the front and center of every frame. So after a while, I was just kind of like, I get it. Whatever, you know, okay. Thank you, Ruben Östlund. Woody Harrelson was great in it. Harris Dickinson. I do love the final act of the film when they kind of get relocated to where they think they're stranded after the boat sinks or whatever. I love that shit, but it just took too long to get there, and everything on the boat was like way too heavy-handed. How about Titane from Julia Ducournau? Holy shit, I want to put it on perfection, but I think I'm going to go on pretty damn good. It would probably sit around an 8 out of 10 for me, maybe a 9. That's why I almost put it on perfection. I saw some kind of mixed reviews coming out for her new film Alpha, which bums me out because I'm really looking forward to that one. But when it comes to Titane, I had never seen anything like it. You know, we've gotten a couple things that have been similarly like, holy shit, you know, but at the time when I saw this, was just you hear people say fever dream. That's what this is. This is truly Ducournau's fever dream of a film. Just really fucking good, man. And just good because it's not even a narrative or a movie that you necessarily need to follow. You just need to like look at it and just be like, oh my God, this is, you're doing it, Julia. This is some shit right here. I'm into this. How about Petite Maman, which I think is how you say it. And if not, I apologize. But this is the same filmmaker that did Portrait of a Lady on Fire, Celine Sciamma. And this was, I think, her follow-up to that. It's a really tight 80-minute film about two young friends that find each other accidentally. They live in this same rural area, and they end up basically building a treehouse out in the woods together from scrap, you know, branches and shit. And we come to find out there's a little bit of a surreal tie-in to the story, but at the end of the day, it's a coming-of-age story about friendship, but it's also a beautiful, like, parental story, like mother-child relationship. So there's a lot of layers to this really short, tight film that was very touching. It was one of my favorite movies of that year. Pretty damn good for me. Also pretty damn good is an animated film, which I think is the first animated one, or maybe the only animated one on here on the Neon list. It's called Robot Dreams. No dialogue in the film. We saw that with Flow last year too. This was another one that I think is just as good as Flow, honestly. Very good. Another movie about the story of friendship and about the story of finding out where you belong in society. Ingrid Goes West is going to go on my tier because I remember thinking I like this, but man, this should be fucking blowing me away, and it wasn't. But it's got Aubrey Plaza and Elizabeth Olsen in it. You know, I mean, what are you going to do? Of course, it's going to, at a minimum, be on the tier. It's probably going to be around a 6 out of 10 for me. This was one of the early Neon films. This may have been the first Neon film I ever saw, actually, unless I'm forgetting something else that came before it. But really good. It's just not. I wanted it to be so much better. I wanted it to focus more on the two ladies. I wanted it to focus on when they got together in Cali, and not like what brought them together. And it was more focused on that social media, like influencer era stuff and what brought them together as opposed to when they were together. And if that makes sense. So I just didn't like the direction the film went in, but I do like it and I do recommend it, especially for those two lead performances. Next up is Immaculate with Sydney Sweeney. Ooh, doggy, I want to go up here, but I'll be realistic and I'll put it on the pretty damn good tier. This is a movie last year that blew me away, man, and it showed me that Sydney Sweeney can do it. She can do it. I put her in my 30 under 30. I think she's going to be nominated for something big in the next decade at the most. I mean, she's just really good in Immaculate. She was really good in Reality earlier that year. So she's got a few performances now where you can see her range, not just rom-com, not just the teenager stuff in Euphoria, but she can do a little bit of everything. And this one, she plays a nun who is dealing with a lot of sinister shit going on at the convent. And one of the best scenes of the year, I thought last year, was her scream with her bloody face scream. I don't want to give away why she's screaming if you haven't seen the movie, but man. So I also think this one's on Hulu too. Probably a lot of these are on Hulu, as long as they're not like super current. So check out Immaculate if you like religious horror for sure. One of my favorite movies of 2023 was Sanctuary, and it's going on my goddamn perfection tier. This was a fearless piece of filmmaking that was seductive, that was sick. This was a movie for the sickos, man. This was a movie with Margaret Qualley playing a dominatrix to Christopher Abbott. And he's a wealthy, he like runs like a pharmaceutical company or something like that. He's super wealthy. And he basically hires Margaret Qualley to role play with him and to dominate him on the floor of the bathroom in the hotel. Some other shit happening too. And we find out at the end of the movie what her kind of motivation is and how he kind of steps out of that character, which you never want to come out of character when you're doing that role play shit or whatever. But he does, and that kind of creates a whole other thing. But quality's a powerhouse. I love Christopher Abbott. I've been saying lately that I hope his award season moment's coming because he turns in fucking 10 out of 10 work every time he acts on camera. I love him. I think that same year, another one that was so good, and another one that I gave a 9 out of 10 to, I'm pretty sure, is How to Blow Up a Pipeline. This one came out early in the year, and it hit early at the festivals in 2023, I believe. And it's such a tout thriller. So it's weird because it's a political drama with a kind of like heist movie built into it. So it has multiple narratives going on, and they all coexist at the same time. And then you add in these elements of almost like a Die Hard kind of movie, where it's like this bomb that this group has built for political reasons, but the kind of science around it and the risks involved and the things that could go wrong add the thriller element to it too. So you really have multiple genres being played with in the sandbox here on How to Blow Up a Pipeline. And it was one of the more like enthralling watches for me in recent memory. I was just so engaged the entire time. Man, we're hitting our stride with some good ones here. My number one movie of 2022 was Spencer, starring Miss Kristen Stewart, who I also thought should have won the lead actress award that year. But of course she didn't. And, you know, Spencer was a little divisive. A lot of people lauded her performance, but not a lot of people loved the movie. I got to see it early at a film festival with a crowd that also loved it, and that may have, you know, swayed me a little bit, but I was just so impressed with Kristen Stewart's kind of nuanced, delicate approach to Princess Di in this movie. And it's a snapshot movie. It's not like about Princess Di's life or anything. It's just about this one weekend around the holidays and her dealing with Prince Charles and his family and, you know, what she supposedly represents for the royal family and how she's dealing with that. But a powerhouse performance that is yet to be matched by Kristen Stewart. A movie that I'm going to put on the big mistake tier is a documentary. They don't do good documentaries, do they? Called Brats. It's about the Brat Pack. It should have been good. It's about the Brat Pack. But Andrew McCarthy, who was one of the Brat Pack and made the documentary, just waste the opportunity. I mean, he just literally just goes and talks to his friends about their experiences with it, and it's a very one-sided take on the era as well. You know, I'm not even saying I don't expect that necessarily, but it just didn't work for me. You know, I want to see something more interesting. I want to learn something when I see these documentaries. Everything in this documentary I knew already, and in most cases I lived through it and remembered it happening. Here we go. Perfection, Possessor, from Brandon Cronenberg. Holy fucked up movie, guys. I was talking earlier about his other film that didn't quite hit with me as much, which was Infinity Pool. Possessor did the opposite. It was one of my top 5 movies of that year. I'm a horror guy, so I freaking loved it. It factored in like elements of like the Matrix and like the sci-fi stuff, and it was definitely borrowing from his father. You know, this was the movie where you go, yep, that's a Cronenberg. Those quirky Cronenbergs are at it again. But this is a 10 out of 10 for me. This is one of my favorite movies. It is not an easy watch. It's hard to watch. It's got a lot of weird shit in it. A lot of body horror. But if you like that kind of thing, if you liked movies like The Substance, for example, it's not that gross in terms of like blood and gore, but it is very shocking. It's a very shocking watch. It's very entertaining, and it does have a pretty strong message in the film too. And I love the kind of futuristic sci-fi elements that are built into it as to what the deal is with these folks in the film Possessor. That Christopher Abbott, by the way, in this again. I loved him in this too. Man, it grouped all these together because I see what's left. It grouped so many of my favorites together. How about Michael Sarnowski's Pig, starring Nicolas Cage? Look, man, somebody stole his pet pig, and he's pissed. But you know what? This was such a surprising watch because you hear that premise and you know it stars Nicolas Cage, who is by no means a quiet actor. He's usually going crazy in his films. It subverts that expectation. Just based on the casting and the premise, you think you're getting something. And when you watch the film, you don't. You get something else. And that was beautiful. It became like a beautiful reflection character piece from Nick Cage. And I actually thought he could be in the lead actor. I predicted him early on that season for the lead actor nomination at the Oscars. He didn't get it ultimately, but he was probably in that top 10 for it as a near miss. So good, man. And another great supporting performance from Alex Wolff in this movie. But Pig is a very quiet, vengeful movie, but quiet. And man, it hit me. It hit, like I said, it was one of the biggest surprises for me, but in a good way. A lot of perfection coming up here, guys. How about The Worst Person in the World? Joachim Trier and Renate Razva, when they work together, expect something massive. And we're getting it again this year with Sentimental Value, which will actually be premiering at Cannes a couple days as I'm recording here. This movie was so brilliant, so amazing. It was a captivating story of this woman and where she fits in the world, what she's going to do to right her wrongs. And it's about finding love. It's about dating. It's about making mistakes as a young person, and just discovering yourself. And it was so good, man. It was easily one of the best movies of that year. And I wish it had gotten more love from the Academy, but I think Sentimental Value could make up a little bit of that ground, if you will. But yeah, it's 10 out of 10. Worst person in the world. So good. Let's do it. Yeah. Pretty damn good. One of my favorite, time continuum movies, or time travel. What do you call them? Time loop is what you call them movies. Palm Springs. This was another COVID era film that went straight to Hulu, but one of the better ones. So good, man. Andy Samberg, Christina Milioti, doing their thing, man. They were just so charming. They had such great chemistry, and it was so funny. And I love the time loop sci-fi elements, like going through this cave as the portal or whatever, and just reliving this wedding reception over again, which presents a lot of comedic opportunities for somebody like Andy Samberg. J.K. Simmons has a great supporting role in the film, and he's also part of that kind of time loop plot. I'm not even joking, you guys. If you like time loop or time travel movies, this is no shit. Palm Springs is probably my top 5 time travel movies. I mean, I just thought it was so good. It's probably an 8 out of 10, very close to a 9. It's also on Hulu. Check it out immediately if for some reason you had not seen that one yet. Another one that's going to go in that 8 out of 10 range is I, Tonya. I talked about this recently because Allison Janney was my number 1 supporting actress. When I ranked those last week, I'll put the tag on this video for you if you want to check out that top 10 list. She was so good as the villainous mother figure in it. Margot Robbie, obviously. I mean, we know now, but when you saw this, you were like, wait a second, is that woman going to be something here? This is a pretty big deal. She did great in it. A young Sebastian Stan is kind of shot like an old Scorsese, King of Comedy or Goodfellas kind of vibe to it, the way it's shot. Very rugged, very rustic, very vintage feeling. And I love when a movie can make a villainous person kind of sympathetic. And, Tonya Harding was ostracized in the public eye, but in this movie, you sympathize with her despite what she's going to do. And even after she did it in the film, you still kind of sympathize with her, and you see the path that kind of was paved for her to get there and how it wasn't completely her fault. So I did love that, and a lot of that comes in Margot Robbie's performance and the direction of the film. And then this is going on perfection. I can't believe that this thing put Anora last on the list, but maybe it's because it knows I've talked about it way too much in the last year. But yeah, last year's Best Picture winner, my number 1 movie of the year last year before any of the Academy stuff. I had it ranked at number 1. I had Mikey Madison predicted all season. I had The Picture predicted pretty much all season, although I had a little hiccup when I had put, I think, The Brutalist at number 1 for a week or two. But other than that, I had Anora riding at number 1 all season. So this is one of my favorite movies of the last 25 years also, if I ever do that list. So Mikey Madison, A Star is Born, star-making performance in this movie. Absolute, takes your breath away that she's 25 years old. I think maybe even 24 when they filmed it. And that the commitment she had to it, the research, the dedication she put into this sex worker trade that she obviously had no knowledge of at such a young age, the Russian component, the comedic elements that are built into it. It's a dark comedy, but it's really funny, especially thanks to some of the supporting characters. I love Anora. You guys know that. So what I'm going to do, let me do this real quick, and then I'll zoom in on it. So see these, let's see what we got here on the perfection tier. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Perfect. 10. So I'm going to move these in the order that I would rank them 1 through 10 of my perfect ones. So Anora would go here. Parasite would go here. Come on, Parasite. Get over there. There we go. So that'd be my 1, 2, 3 right there. I would probably do, man, I love all these so much. This is actually harder than it looks. Let's do probably Possessor, honestly. Possessor, and then maybe Worst Person, maybe. And then Revenge. I think that's right. Pig would probably be before Sanctuary, maybe. This is probably right here. So here's how I would rate these perfection films from Neon Studios. Parasite, Portrait of a Lady on Fire, Anora, Possessor, The Worst Person in the World, Coralie Farjah's Revenge, Pig, starring Nicolas Cage, Sanctuary, How to Blow Up a Pipeline, and Spencer with Kristen Stewart. That would be my top 10 Neon films right there. Bam, there you go. That's the order I put them into. And then you see where I ranked all the other ones there. 45 films I threw on that tier list for you today. There were several that I have not seen yet, but I'm human, and I just, It hasn't happened yet. Let me know what you guys thought of my tier list ranking. I got a Tom Cruise tier list coming up, but that'll probably be next week because I want to wait until after I see The Final Reckoning, which I'll be seeing tomorrow as I'm sitting here, and I'll do a review on the channel for you most likely as well. Let me know what your favorite neon movie is. Which one is your number one of all the ones I mentioned today? Or if there's a neon film that did not show up on the tier list, please let me know down below as well, as I would love to add those to my watch list and try to complete my watching of all these films, because Neon Studios, as you can see, does some really, really good shit. Most of the stuff was in those top 3 tiers, which is awesome. If you like movies, if you like award season, you should be subscribed to this channel. Make sure you subscribe. I'm also giving away a custom canvas poster of Anora. I will throw a tag on this video for you can go to the link to see about the contest, which, by the way, ends on May 31st. So we've only got a little over a week for you to enter that contest. And I don't know if my channel regulars may or may not know this yet, but channel memberships are open. You can click down below where it says join to read more about it. It's like $3 a month. You get all kinds of shit, custom badges, emojis. I'm going to do live streams just for my members, probably at least once a month. What else? All videos early, all my countdown rankings videos like these early. So if you want to join the channel, that would help support it, help me purchase the beer that I drink when I'm out here talking about movies. If you guys would like to do that. Thanks for watching this video, guys. I'll see you out here next time in the garage.